Hi everyone, Mark here from Universal Asylum again. Look, I just thought I'd have a little chat to provide a bit of a brief introduction to my unsanctioned experimental research into the therapeutic value of, DMT and other forbidden fruits, so to speak. I don't know really where to start. I mean, really where the story starts as well, years beforehand throughout my recovery, and then throughout all the trauma that I experienced via the hands of certain dance schools, and my psychopathic little ex who looks like she's been hit in the face with a fucking cricket bat. Shit, with those stories I sort of cut off before there's plenty of reference to the more direct severe abuse that I experienced. But the videos that I put up relating to this, the level of gaslighting that I experienced as she tormented and abused me whilst I desperately fought to save my father's life throughout that final 6 months of my social work degree. I sort of probably cut off just before she manipulated me into sending my father home, and just to find him a week later with his face stuck to the floor in a pool of blood, and have her ring up and fucking scream at me that my father dying was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was the first time she pulled that stunt, the fucking nasty little fucking cow. And then just to turn around and go, oh, I'm not speaking to you till after Christmas now, you have to wait, because all I wanted was an explanation, and then, to why I'd been treated that way. And it was weird the way that I blamed myself throughout, the way it was projected back onto me, I almost felt like I'd done something to deserve by failing to live up to a delusional fucking psychotic fucking games. Like I deserved that kind of response to finding my old man dead, and then the death of my, one of my other exes, and then my best mate within fucking 3 months, and my best mate, fucking that little fucking dog attended his fucking wedding, the only person who didn't deserve to be there. For the record, just to say the little fucking narcissistic slut fucking knows, I shouldn't use the term slut because there's nothing, I'm totally against slut shaming. The more, I guess, as I've said before in relation to myself, and, there's nothing wrong with being a slut, where the harms come into play is, how you carry yourself around your sexual conduct, and that can manifest in all kinds of negative fucking ways. But then, then find my closest mate passing away, and just having, to rock up to Hugo Solcito's fucking dance event in Casa Blah Blah, just to have her turn around, and scream in my what happened first, because I'd passed Christmas, I'd finally succeeded in her fucking waiting games, and I bumped into her out, and there was fuck all people there. There was 6 people on the fucking dance floor, and then her standing there, and so I said, oh, how you going? And she went, oh yeah, alright, yourself? I'm and then just went quiet. So, are you even going to ask how I am? Oh, why would I do that? You're just going to tell me someone else is dead? And I didn't even know how to respond. I just went silent. And then, confused by, such severe fucking treatment over fucking, realistically over a 6-month fucking period of deliberately trying to just tormenting and abusing me. I spotted her a bit later outside with her fucking mate, and I was having a cigarette. And I mentioned fucking Sam Staker's tiny cock in front of her mate. And she kicked up this massive fucking scene. I said, I sort of wanted some fucking answers. And yeah, she kicked up a massive fucking scene, and then the bar ladies like threatened, basically said, oh, you've got to either go inside or leave, because if a woman's allowed to just abuse the fuck out of a man, but if she just plays the victim, fucking the man gets punished, is how it works in our society, this shithole we have created. So I went inside. Left the situation, just to have that narcissistic, gutless cunt, Rosie Bourne, come fucking running across the room, grabs me by the fucking collar, screams in my face, if your dad dying's the best thing that ever happened to you. If you ever mention Sam's little dick again in front of my friend, I'm gonna fucking tell everyone about your medical conditions. And just like, I was fucking like, I can't even demonstrate it the way she fucking did it. Just embarrassed because I can't get away from people enough. Like, it just screams. And of course, you know, the music, I was standing there waiting for a dance. Of course, everyone else is dancing, the music's fucking playing. Like, you know, no one fucking... You know, I couldn't even respond. I've said 100 times most people would have smashed her fucking face in. Part of me wishes I did. So then when the judge asked, why did you smash Rosie Bourne's fucking face in? You know, I could have said what she fucking did. Psychopath. Fucking psychopath. Then runs around and tells, oh, he's obsessed with me, I'm so scared. Just to destroy my social work degree that I fucking spent years working towards. So yeah, you get the point. I was left completely traumatised for the next... then I walked out and I basically said, if you fucking... In front of her friend, I said, look, alright, cunt, you want to play fucking skeletons in the closet? How much fucking fraud have you committed? You know, in reference to fucking the fraud that she'd committed. Basically, if you want to fucking... You can either sit down and tell me what the fuck you're playing at. Otherwise, fucking, basically... Can't even remember what words I used. You sit down and fucking tell me what the fuck you're playing at. Otherwise, say goodbye to your career and have fun in jail. They're going to fucking love you in there. And then she agreed to meet up. Of course, then I went on holidays with my kids. She agrees to meet up. Then she sends me a fucking letter whilst I'm on holidays. This is how much of a psychopath this gutless cunt Rosie Bourne is. Instead of sending them, like we agree in a couple of weeks, right, sends me a fucking letter telling me how she was planning on dumping me for Sam Staker for 6 months beforehand. Fuck you, Rosie Bourne, you fucking dog. You know? Like, no, not giving me any explanation about screaming in my face that my father dying is the best thing that ever happened. Left me fucking completely so traumatised I had no one left. She knew it. Rosie Bourne knew I had no support left. Did you think about what this did to my mother, you fucking dog? Anyway, fucking completely... I was in complete shock. I'd went, like, at the beginning of that period, my fucking other closest mate moved to Melbourne. So the 6 closest people are basically gone. Out of my 2 closest mates, the first one moved to fucking Melbourne. Or was it Darwin first? He's lived in every capital city since then. It gets hard to keep track of. I think he went to Darwin the first time. So my best mate, one of them went to fucking Darwin. Then my rag fucking fugly cunt who I should have, like, you know, basically the charity case dog that I let into my life, Rosie Bourne, fucking destroys my life. My fucking other best friend fucking dies. My dad dies. And then out of my 2 uni mates, they just got jobs and got married and fucking, you know, like, just never bothered fucking really ever having anything to do with me again because I'd served my fucking purpose. There's fucking no one left. And I was, like, so severe. Like, I was in shock for, like, well over 12 months. Like, severe shock. I barely drank. Throughout some of it, it was weird, it was really eerie. I was just like, that shock period, it went on for a long time. And I sort of functioned, I couldn't eat properly, I was very traumatised. I couldn't, you know, I just kept trying, I didn't know, I was trying to get work. You know, I had a bit of a break and managed to stop drinking at periods. And then I started relapsing really hard, I think the shock wore off after about a year. Completely isolated. Oh, he's obsessed with me. Oh, I'm scared of him. Fuck you, Rosie Bourne. I do not give a fuck. If Rosie Bourne kills herself because the whole world knows that she screamed in my face how good my dad dying was, I hope she doesn't die. I hope she snaps her fucking neck and is a fucking quadriplegic and sits there and thinks about how fucking powerful the dog fucking felt. Right? Fucking gutless fucking cunt. And then I started relapsing hard, and then it was like I got pushed under this fucking bus, then dragged me along for the following fucking years. Yeah, I started relapsing hard, and then fucking all throughout that period, stuff started getting really dangerous. I couldn't eat properly. My fucking drinking was just all that pain, and just the pain and confusion and denial from the level of abuse that I'd experienced. Absolutely no fucking support. Plenty of people who loved me, but none left here in this fucking city. And then I just kept fucking relapsing hard. Went to rehab. Oh, that's what the little dog did. She made me wait for a whole fucking year with all that trauma going around. And then she sat there and fuck. I can't even describe that. I won't now. Fucking maybe another day. Fucking narcissistic little fucking dog. Ended up relapsing real bad. Fucking ODing, blacking out, nearly burning my house down constantly. Absolutely just broken and traumatised. And then I went to rehab and I got sober and clean. I was in Melbourne, at Galliamble. Really incredible, Indigenous based rehab. Met some really amazing people, got all strong and healthy, and that's a whole nother amazing fucking story. And then I come back and I probably only lasted 3 months. I fucking tried real hard, and I was physically, because I was doing, I was able to do all my dance while I was in rehab, and that's all massive story. Then I come back and I got opportunity, and I was training for a couple of Adelaide dance schools, and ended up training up to go and represent 2 fucking Adelaide dance schools in fucking Brisbane. At my first dance congress. I've never been able to do that. I've never been able to go away and do any of the big events because I couldn't afford to, because I was at uni and all that shit, and it was all stuff I wanted to do once I started my career. I fucking, I don't know, I overcommitted, and I was in my house full of ghosts, and I didn't have any fucking, I think that year I had one person come into my house to train, and I ended up, I trained so hard, and then I ended up relapsing, and my health went down so fast. And then the doctor, I ended up with 2 I don't know, I didn't think they were gonna, I was relapsing, and I asked one doctor for, my doctor was away, so I put in, asked for my normal script as well as a script for Xanax to do with my, which I had before, and then I didn't think I'd get that, and I went to my other doctor and ended up with a script of Valium and Xanax, and then I ended up, I wasn't going to drink, and then I couldn't not, and I ended up, basically ended up blacking out for 6 days at Brazil Central National Zouk Congress in Brisbane, and I can't, the only thing I remember, the main thing I remember is people coming up to me and going, "Are you alright? Are you okay?" And I'm just confused, each morning, and I just didn't know. I got some real odd memories there, and I don't know what happened. Like, but, you know, the main thing I remember is people, like, and they're like, you don't remember nothing, do you? Because I was all confused. And that's the main thing I remember, people asking if I was okay and then going, you don't remember nothing. And, like, so that was all fucking traumatic. And that's when stuff started coming out fucking really, like, online and stuff. And I started calling Rosie a gutless cunt and, like, online and writing, like, you know, fucking calling her. I was too traumatised, and so she did so many things, and it, like, you know, all I could manage to do was call her a gutless cunt and a psychopath, and, you know, like, I didn't know who to go to. I was just trying to, you know, trying to do all the healthy stuff and go to AA and eating and trying to eat healthy and do healthy stuff. And I just fucking, I relapsed and then I nearly, so I blacked out there, which all compounded the trauma, and then fucking, you know, then I fucking started ODing and fucking, I had some accidents and stuff at times, and like it was getting really dangerous, nearly died a few times, and that was when I'm not really sure it was, you know, that I sustained like a suspected ABI, and I had this headache for about fucking the next couple of years. You know, I went back to fucking rehab and gave it another shot, and I decided, you know, what was different between then and the first time. And like the first time I went to rehab, I set up in Adelaide and I had like all my supports here, and I volunteered, and I had like momentum, where like then when I went to Melbourne and I come back to Adelaide, I had none of that stuff. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll try set up in Melbourne. And then that gutless cunt moved to fucking Melbourne as well at some point. And, you know, because actually a lot of my recovery friendships are in Melbourne now still. Or some of my closest friends and stuff. So I tried going to rehab again, and then tried setting up in Melbourne, and then I relapsed hard, and I couldn't stay clean and sober on top of the trauma, and I was trying to like practice like the AA program and what had worked in the past, and it wasn't fucking working. You know, and I think it was actually in between that rehab, the two Melbourne rehabs that I bumped into an old mate, and I'd bumped into someone in Melbourne who mentioned ayahuasca, and that had sparked some interest and about the spiritual side of it and trauma and stuff like that. And I had read a bit of stuff and enough to know, like, not too much, but enough to just wonder, is this like my possible, but it didn't really fit with, like, it was something really big to consider because of my past history of drug and alcohol use and stuff like that. So, you know, when I bumped into my mate, I was relapsing pretty fucking hard, and we ended up going out and having a massive surf fishing fucking experience, and like getting on the DMT. He's like, oh, I've got some of that home. He's like, let's go fishing tomorrow night. He raged me out fucking mad. God knows what that fucking fishing trip cost him. You know, like, and I mean, I was, you know, like, we cooked hard on everything else. It's like we're doing everything else wrong, but like that experience with the DMT gave me enough. And then I got hold of a bit more, and I was trying to, you know, I guess experiment a little bit with it, or experiment with its therapeutic value, but I hadn't pulled up. I was still using drugs, so I guess those experiences showed me enough. They were powerful enough to show me it had potential. However, I knew that potential was limited by the fact that I was, you know, still active in my sort of alcoholism and addiction, using, you know, alcohol and other substances. And, you know, then after, I guess, different attempts of trying to transition to Melbourne and then pulling the pin and it getting too hard and getting too sick, I elected to go back to the woolshed up in the Adelaide Hills for my fourth, hardcore attempt at rehabilitation, and, you know, I managed to stay clean and sober to my definition since then. I mean, that was shit coming up 5.5 years ago. 5 years, no fucking amphetamines, no heroin, no alcohol, no pot, no abuse of fucking prescription medicines, which, is all pretty a fucking miracle for me, But it was 12 months into recovery, and I was, I'd done 6 months in the wool shed, and I'd come back to my own house, and I was doing AA, and I was like just over a year sober, and I was trying to do everything right. I basically had a trail to my bed and my kitchen sink and, the bathroom, and I couldn't function. I was just walking around in my house full of ghosts, fucking traumatised. I didn't know how to do life. I didn't have any support. And, I was fucked. And I tried things like, I was trying to work out how I could, maybe fundraise to go to Peru and do, a rehab for drug and alcohol, an ayahuasca retreat aimed at, rehabilitation for PTSD and alcoholism and stuff like that. And no matter what I tried, I was too broken to make any of it happen. And, I researched. I ended up figuring out how to acquire what I needed to make ayahuasca myself, and I basically, through a combination of my own therapeutics experience through my studies into social work and my experience in recovery from alcoholism, in combination with, what I'd understood of the rehab programs that I'd looked into in Peru, and then some pointers I drew from some of the ideas of people like Terence McKenna, and basically I tailored my own intensive rehab program where I'd basically planned to do an intensive of about what I could afford was 10 doses of ayahuasca over, I think it was a bit over 2 weeks, which I've I've got it all documented. I filmed a lot of my work, and have done a lot of writing and documentation of probably I would say that I've done around 300 large floods over the last, say, 4.5 years. However, probably only documented around half of those. There were periods through the middle that I ceased documentation due to a number of circumstantial factors and things like that. However, leading into my experimentation into the therapeutic value of, dimethyltryptamine and other psychedelics. At the time, I was completely suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore, and I basically, I was in so much pain. I had my children and stuff, and so basically, I just, it was my way of avoiding suicide. And, I basically said I will eat every forbidden fruit, which gave me lots of options, and if they don't help, I'll eat them all at once, and I started off with the ayahuasca, and part of me, I didn't want to put preconceived ideas into my head, so basically all I researched was more I'd heard a couple of little things from a few brief conversation, but I avoided reading into people's experiences and stuff like that. The type of information I researched was the type of information I needed not to basically not to end up dead, Basically, I read up on MAOIs and, basically the information I needed to be able to make ayahuasca and, the fasting requirements and things like that, what I needed to avoid in terms of, potentially fatal drug interactions and stuff like that. Firstly with ayahuasca, but also, other substances as I guess slowly ticked many substances off the list. I didn't read into people. I didn't want to put preconceived ideas into my head. I was aware of, some of the brief ways in which people speak of these, and perhaps I've left that, avoided some of the ways in which people speak of the spiritual nature of these substances, is something that I haven't touched on a lot. And there is there's very mysterious and a lot of talk about spirit worlds, and I have touched upon some of those things, and there is a lot of unanswered questions there and things that we do not understand. However, I don't know. The one thing that I am sure of after, the level of experience that I've had with, DMT and other forbidden fruit is that they are, particularly DMT, is a nutrient that is specific to the central nervous system. Now, that's not to profess that I actually understand. I have a solid understanding of that. I have absolutely no doubt that is what it is, which I have been able to back up with some pretty hardcore science. The side of that I have more questions than answers in relation to is what actually happens when we switch on the brain, and I think they're some of the lost mysteries that require massive research into the value of these substances, there's a lot of stuff spoken to as if it is supernatural. Well, that whole term, the idea of supernatural assumes that is based on the assumption that we are running at our maximum capacity, whereas, I guess in respect to my theory that, this is a nutrient specific to the central nervous system that was forbidden from our diet a long time ago, more suggests that it is quite natural for us to have these so-called supernatural experiences, when we consume these substances, do they is it really extrasensory type information that we sorry, I'm losing my I don't know that I'm actually quite saying that right, they only become extrasensory type I guess experiences and information, based on those assumptions that, we are incapable of these things. And, we do know that when you consume these type of substances that your brain lights up like a light globe. Yes, this does open up possibilities of, some of my experiences that I've had with these substances, although, I've spoken a lot to the ways in which they facilitate, I guess, extremely powerful autoimmune responses in a physical plane, I can't, which are far easier to explain than some of the other experiences. I've had experiences which very much opened me up to possibilities such as, time travel. Not so much personally for me, not forward, but for me that was more backwards, which opened up, I guess, affirmed possibilities of things like collective consciousness and, which I've had other reasons to open my mind to. Like I've said before, once upon a time, I believe life started, when the sperm met the egg, and fucking lights out all over dick once you die. And I don't know about that anymore. I know I felt my father die. I've had these experiences under the influence of some of these forbidden fruits, where it did very much seem like I went back generations. It was very, very peculiar, very bizarre. I make myself sound like a nut to speak of it. I don't, and there were lessons to be learnt there, and it's sort of, I don't know that they're things that really, does it matter what it was, or was it my interpretation, or was it just enabling me access to all of my memories throughout this lifetime? I'm not, it becomes very difficult to say, and I think, on the mental health side of interpreting these quite, abstract substances, if you look at the histories of these substances, they are used from every indigenous culture and shamanic cultures. And yes, they are spoken to in terms of, mainly in terms of their spiritual value and psychological healing and stuff like that. But that's usually from people who have quite limited experience with their value, and then probably there are assumptions based on how they are used in those shamanic cultures. If you've got cultures where these substances are being used regularly, the people using them are possibly they're more up to date on their maintenance. So I guess the physical aspects or physical healing aspects of these medicines become possibly quite less distinguishable compared to someone who's using them in severe states of health. And then do they become more of a mild maintenance thing that is also, has more of a, I guess, accent, or can't think of the word, but sort of leans more towards the spiritual side of it. What are these beings that are commonly reported to being encountered on these substances, and a lot of which are often referred to as, sicknesses being, spiritual entities, fucking like having entities attached to people, which I have touched upon in the past, in reference to coming across, infections, and, I guess trying to remain open to the possibility that some of the, entities that I've encountered are actually the infections, within, my system, and, as opposed to like being some sort of, I guess more supernatural external world entities. And, there is a possibility that there could be a bit of both, and, I don't want to rule that out. I think, when I went into my research and stuff like that, there was things where it's like, well, there's maybe three possibilities. It's either taking you into yourself or out of yourself, or is it, possibly a bit of both, which, like, either way has infinite combinations of possibilities, considering, I guess, lack of knowledge considering this aspect of ourselves, or exploring, these dimensions of ourselves, but then, the potential of other dimensions that, are otherwise generally left inaccessible by our species. Now, there are some people who claim that they can access these dimensions without the use of these substances. They say, or perhaps they are unknowingly, through having an otherwise clean diet, or state of health. Many combinations of things that could contribute to it, but through having that, I guess, a cleaner state of physical and mental health, as well as, I guess, different techniques and things like that, perhaps some people are able to, access these higher realms, so to speak. It's, I guess it's all, the point is, I've tried to remain open to these possibilities. And, I think when I started, it didn't take long before I wasn't, or I was, however, skeptical's the right word. I refuted the idea that these substances were drugs. And, I do, based in my experience, that's one of science's shortcomings with these. Instead of studying this substance and going, what is this? What is this? And that was part of what I went in, what is this and will it help? And I didn't, I did like my 10 doses of ayahuasca, and then I did a strong course of mescaline. We had mescaline Mondays down here at fucking Clapham, where my friend ended up getting detained. And we did mescaline Mondays for fucking months, like massive doses. She was on antidepressants that blocked her, from, I guess, experiencing the full effects. And I was matching doses and just being full, complete transcendence into, I guess, complete physical detachment from, I guess, my normal state of being. And I was being catapulted into the next whatever dimensions, sometimes very frightening. And eventually, as we increase the doses, she broke through really bad. And it's sort of almost like, I think the danger there was sort of, she had one drug, a doctor drug, antidepressant type thing, trying to close her brain, and then put another one on top of it, trying to fucking open it, and sort of almost like pulling a fucking elastic band in other ways and fucking twang it, sort of catapulted her in quite, I guess resulted in quite a challenging experience, to say the least. And I think, they're your big major dangers with these, what you're mixing them with, and particularly with, some of these Western medicines that have very poor science supporting them, and then I guess over those sort of, found it quite disappointing throughout those sort of, I had many spiritual experiences, or experiences that are quite spiritual in nature and very healing physically. However, I found I was still severely traumatized, severely depressed. None of it helped the fact that I still lived in a really, quite toxic, I was still suffering from capitalism. I was living in a soulless society, completely isolated, most of the time. And, I've had been blessed with, some beautiful people from times to times, but it's been very, I do live a very isolated life over these last recent years, ever since that nasty little dog fucking, tormented and abused me till everyone was gone, And then, I still, I still haven't properly grieved my father, and one day I'm gonna do his ashes and stuff, and I'm not ready yet. But it wasn't dealing with my. I was getting a bit defeated, and then I found the mushrooms. And the first year, my first winter, I walked for months. I walked for fucking months. I mean, not months, weeks. But I walked literally hundreds of kilometres over those, probably about 3 weeks. Drove probably a couple of 1,000 kilometres over those weeks. I was going out every fucking day. And, some days I would have been, I walked hundreds of kilometres, I'd go out. Sometimes I'd probably only walk fucking 8 or 9 Ks, but sometimes it was up through very rough terrain. And I just couldn't find the little fuckers anywhere. And when I eventually found them, I drove not far from fucking, 15 minutes from home, still in suburbia, got out the car, fucking ready to give up, leant on a fence and fucking, defeated, and they were just there like, hi, here we are, like fucking like just stout. And like when I seen, and like the whole journey had been so depressing, and I'd come home and I'd post my fucking wrong mushrooms on like the Australian and New Zealand like psilocybin mushroom page, like once again, and I'll be waiting, and then they'd be like, nah, it's the wrong one, and then you get 20 fucking notifications saying it's the wrong one, and it'd just be so depressing and so defeating. And then other people would post their mushrooms and they found the right ones, and then I'd be sure I found them. There was a time I nearly ate some that like they would have killed me. I was sure they were right, but they fucking weren't. I needed the guidance and support of people that fucking knew what they were doing. But when I found the right ones, they all fucking cheered. And then not long after that, like I found like a decent patch. Like I got 1/4 pound dry, and that was enough to really give a good run. And that season, like from those mushrooms, I started having them, and my depression actually lifted, and I was able to be present. It lifted me from my trauma, and like I was able to appreciate the nature, because it was like I was walking around like traumatized with this storm cloud over me wherever I went. I couldn't see the birds or hear them. I was so fucked and just in pain everywhere I went. And then I was able to function for a little while, and I tried different things in terms of microdosing and having massive doses. I actually found microdosing impractical for me because I experienced what is commonly referred to as wood lovers paralysis, which basically refers to psilocybin mushrooms, or my understanding of it is that it refers to psilocybin mushrooms that grow off of wood. So I guess they're wood dwelling or wood feeding sort of species or variety of fungi or variety of psilocybin mushrooms anyway. And, but one of the side effects is what I find extremely interesting about that paralysis is that it never affects I used to know the name of different muscle groups, but it never affects any of your vital organ functions, any muscle groups that say support your heart or lungs, or however, I found like common in my fingers, and I just found something that is so commonly reported, yet there's no deaths associated with psilocybin. Due to, say, things like, say paralysis surrounding your respiratory system, that type of thing. It just doesn't happen for whatever reason. I find that very interesting. However, I found like that palsy or wood lovers paralysis, it became a little bit, I get it in my fingers, and just became impractical to microdose. So what I found more helpful was to dose large, like 5 gram plus doses regularly, and that worked quite well for me that first year. However, I run out. It didn't take too long to run out. Eating 5 grams a week. Then I got through the summer with, mescaline and maybe a little bit of ayahuasca here and there. I have to check my notes, but it was a bit of a, it was probably only a few months, but a bit of a long wait, a long few months for winter, and that following winter I actually pulled about a pound of 1 pound dry of magic mushrooms, enough to probably do 25 years fucking jail. Because they probably assume that you're distributing it. I fucking ate that. However, with the following year, I didn't find that it didn't alleviate my depression in the same way. It sort of, which was disappointing and was very, because I just wanted to feel better about things. But actually, some of those experiences led me to the conclusion that I needed to stick up for myself, and that ended up, leading to me standing up against Latino Grooves and submitting online reviews in face of the public against them. And, part of me, I was still very weak, and that was all part of my healing process, I think. I was like, no, you need to stand up for yourself. You're not going to get well. You're not going to get well unless you stand up for yourself, sort of thing. So, I did try that, and part of me, I was so traumatized and so in so much denial that part of me wanted it to be a mistake, and looking back, that was actually quite delusional in itself. I had all the evidence. There was no mistake. There was never any remorse for any of the psychopathic abuse. They're just absolute psychopaths with no fucking conscience, that's quite evident in my, my attempts. Part of me, it took a while to piece together the puzzle, and even that process of standing up showed that they were, looks like my battery's going to run out, but helped me unpack that denial. And that was when I first found out. That was when Hugo Salcedo slandered me to 17,000 people, because part of me was hoping he would go, respond like he didn't know, like it was all a big mistake, and part of me just wanted it to all, everyone to play nice and them to just say sorry, I didn't know he knew. I know he knew. Now I've been able to piece together enough of the puzzle. But, one of the big pieces Hugo Salcedo thought he was sticking up for Rosie Bourne when he slandered me to 17,000 people, claiming I became obsessed with, really the most fugly dog to ever step foot on the Latin dance community. What he didn't realise, what Hugo Salcedo didn't fucking realise, was I put him in a position where he had two choices. He could either be a man and show some fucking ownership and accountability, or he could sell Rosie Bourne out for what she was really fucking saying behind my fucking back, while she tormented and abused me and made me beg for my belongings back and use my father's death as a weapon against me. Now, that was the first, that unpacked. There was no more, that really fucked up my denial, because then, it was easier to think it was, a big mistake and, blaming myself and all of that shit. It was, even though that was so, I was stuck in that rut for so long. But, that led to, I guess, me trying to stand up to some of that stuff, and even now standing up to the world and trying to push for my career, and trying to legitimize how do I get a job to study something that should be studied, even though a whole system is designed and structured around a culture that has forbidden these substances for thousands of years, to the point that science isn't even allowed to study them, despite the fact, the overwhelming, just trying to suppress the fucking overwhelming scientific value, evidence, indicating that these offer massive holistic value, due to the sake that because our governments want to prop up big pharma, absolutely fucking, how do we, yeah, I guess it's brought my spirit back trying to build my organisation that fucking Rosie Bourne and Hugo Solcito and all them fucking cunts involved in tormenting and abusing me and sabotaging my career, rebuilding my career and my standing in the community, and all of that stuff, trying to process so much complexity surrounding so much trauma, and these have the severe level and ongoing process of unpacking different parts of the trauma over time, and trying to figure out, I guess, not only what these substances are, but figuring myself out as I've used them and applied them in the healing of so many physical conditions, but also the many complex